My millionaire boyfriend looked straight into my eyes and said coldly, "You don't even have enough money to feed your own child for a week. Sign this contract, accept my philandering, keep your mouth shut, and you'll have enough money to raise the child." I was stunned, and from that moment, I knew I only had two choices: stay silent, live together, and hide the evil, or stand up and fight. I will never forget Maria Gonzalez's face when she walked into the Safe Harbor consulting office that Tuesday afternoon, 22 years old, eyes red from crying, clutching a soaked tissue like a last lifeline. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice trembling, I don't know if I came to the right place, but I heard about you, about what you did, and I think maybe you can understand." I looked at her, young, scared, desperate, and saw myself from 7 years ago. I gestured for her to sit down in the chair across from my small desk, where I had my master's degree in social work from CUNY, certificates from various victim advocacy training courses, and a photo of me with Lucas, now 6 years old, at our small apartment in Queens. "You came to the right place, Maria," I said gently. "Tell me what's happening." Maria took a deep breath, wiping her tears. "My boss, he offered me a promotion, senior manager, salary increase from $50,000 to $75,000 a year. I was thrilled, until he explained the additional responsibilities. I already knew what was coming next. I had heard this story many times over the past 3 years, with different details but the same pattern. He said the senior position required comprehensive client relationship management, Maria continued, meaning dinners with clients, sometimes drinks after work, and ensuring client satisfaction through attentive hospitality. "He used exactly those words?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes." When I asked what specifically, he laughed and said, "Smart girls will understand." Then he mentioned that the previous senior manager, a girl named Jessica, was very good at client relations but had moved on after a year. I felt a familiar chill run down my spine. Different company, different industry, but the same script. "Maria," I said, leaning forward, "before I advise you, I need to tell you a story. A story about myself, about what happened when I was also your age and I heard exactly those same words." Maria looked at me, eyes widening. "So, what did you do?" I looked out the window. The Manhattan view from this small office wasn't as impressive as the penthouse I once lived in, but it was mine, earned by my own strength. "I lost 6 years of my life," I said bluntly. 6 years trapped in a system I didn't understand until it was too late. Then 2 years fighting to get out. But in the end, I stood up. And for you to understand why you need to run right now, I'll tell you from the beginning. I met James Whitmore on an autumn morning in 2018 at a small coffee shop near Washington Square Park where I worked as a barista. I was 19 years old then, sophomore at NYU, with a full scholarship. But the scholarship only covered tuition, not the fun $200 monthly rent for a tiny room in Queens, not food, books, or subway passes. I worked 3 part-time jobs: barista in the morning, tutor in the afternoon, server at an Italian restaurant on weekends. My mother, a single mother working as a waitress in Ohio, had cried when I got my acceptance letter from NYU. "Study hard," she said. "Never depend on men like I did. Have your own career." I had planned to do just that, until James walked into the coffee shop. He was 32 years old, perfectly tailored Armani suit, Rolex glittering under the cafe lights. He ordered a double espresso, sat in the corner, worked on his laptop for 2 hours. When he got up to leave, he left a $50 tip for a $4 cup of coffee. "You make the best coffee in Manhattan," he said, smiling. a warm, genuine smile that made me blush. "Thank you," I said, surprised by the generous tip. "My name is James Whitmore." He handed me his business card. "I have a company nearby. If you ever need anything, call." I looked at the card. James Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Industries. Impressive. Intimidating. "Emily Carter." I introduced myself, feeling foolish for being just a college student working as a barista. But James didn't treat me that way. He came back the next day, and the day after. Each time he asked about my classes, about plans for the future. I told him about my dream of becoming a teacher, about wanting to help kids like me escape poverty. "You'll be a wonderful teacher," James said. And I believed him, because no one had ever said things like that to me before. After 2 weeks, he invited me to dinner. I knew I should say no. Red flags everywhere. He was 13 years older than me. He was a wealthy CEO. I was a poor college student. The power imbalance was obvious. But I was lonely. I was tired of 3 jobs and endless stress about money, and I wanted to believe that someone saw me as special, so I said yes. That evening at Le Bernardin, a 3 Michelin star restaurant whose menu prices made me dizzy, was magical. James asked about my childhood in Ohio, about my single mother, about the struggles. He didn't judge. He listened. "Emily," he said at the end of dinner, taking my hand across the table, "you deserve more than working 3 jobs and barely sleeping. Let me help." "I don't need charity," I said defensively. "Not charity, an investment." James smiled. "I believe in you, and I want to see you succeed." Over the next 3 months, my life transformed. James took me to places I never dared dream I could afford. Broadway shows, the Metropolitan Museum, weekend trips to the Hamptons. Every date he insisted on paying for everything. "Save your money for tuition," he said. "Let me take care of the rest." And like a fool, I let him. In December 2018, I discovered I was pregnant. I was terrified. I was 19 years old, a college sophomore, working 3 jobs, barely making ends meet. How could I raise a child? But James reacted differently than I expected. "Don't be scared," he said, holding me in my small room. "We'll do this together. You don't need to work anymore. No more stress about money. I'll take care of everything. But do I have to drop out?" My tears flowed. "Temporarily," James said gently. "After the baby is born, when everything is stable, you can go back and finish your degree. But now the priority is your health and the baby's." It sounded reasonable, caring, exactly what a scared 19-year-old girl wanted to hear. "I'll arrange everything," James promised. "I'll take you to meet a lawyer to set up the paperwork, to ensure you and the child are protected if anything happens to me. I want you safe." In January 2019, 3 months pregnant, I sat in the luxurious office of a lawyer named Richard Morrison, James's lawyer. "Miss Carter," Morrison said, with a professional smile, "Mr. Whitmore wants to ensure that you and the child are financially secure. This document is a domestic partnership agreement, essentially a prenuptial agreement for unmarried couples." He pushed a stack of papers, 47 pages, across the desk. "It covers housing, living expenses, healthcare, childcare, everything you need." I looked at the pages, overwhelmed by legal terminology. I'm not sure I understand all." "That's completely normal," Morrison reassured. "Basically, Mr. Whitmore agrees to provide you with a monthly living allowance, housing, and cover all expenses related to the child. In return, you agree to maintain an exclusive relationship and confidentiality about Mr. Whitmore's private matters." "Confidentiality?" I asked. "Standard confidentiality clause," Mr. Whitmore is a public figure, CEO of a successful company. This agreement protects the privacy of both parties. James, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand. Honey, this is to protect you. If anything happens to me, accident, illness, anything, you will still be financially secure. No worries. I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe him. So I signed. Page 1, page 2, page 47. My hand trembled as I wrote my name, but I didn't read the fine print carefully. I didn't ask questions, I just trusted. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Lucas was born in August 2019 at New York Presbyterian Hospital. James was there for the birth, exactly 30 minutes. He held the baby in his arms, smiled for the nurse to take a photo. Then his phone rang. I have to take this call, he said, handing Lucas back to me. Tokyo client. Urgent. He disappeared into the hallway, his voice fading. Yes, Mr. Tanaka, I understand the urgency. I lay there, exhausted, after 14 hours of labor, holding my newborn son, and felt completely alone. That should have been a red flag. But I rationalized. He's busy. He's providing for us. I should be grateful. We moved into a penthouse in the Upper East Side. An $8 million property with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. 2 bedrooms, a modern kitchen I didn't know how to use, and a feeling of emptiness despite all the luxury. The first month, James was attentive. He checked on me and Lucas, hired a night nurse, made sure we had everything we needed, but gradually he came home later, left earlier. Business trips stretched from 2 days to 2 weeks. You have everything you need, he said when I complained about loneliness. Beautiful home, healthy baby, financial security. What more do you want? I want you, I said. I want a partner, not a provider, James sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. Emily, I'm building an empire. That's for us, for Lucas's future. You need to understand that, so I tried to understand. I tried to be grateful. I tried not to complain when he missed Lucas's first steps because of a business dinner, when he didn't come home for the baby's first birthday because of a trip to Singapore. But there was something about how James talked about work, a strange enthusiasm when mentioning client relations, that made me uneasy, as if he wasn't just selling consulting services, but selling something else. The financial arrangements were also strange. Each month, $3,000 was deposited into a checking account in my name, but James had access. If I spent over budget, he would remind me, you need to manage money better. $3,000 is generous. Generous? In Manhattan, with a newborn? Groceries, diapers, baby clothes, household items. $3,000 was just enough. But when I asked for more, you have a roof over your head, worth $15,000 a month, James countered. Healthcare, worth $2,000 a month. You're receiving much more than $3,000. He wasn't wrong, technically, but I felt like an employee receiving an allowance, not a partner. In 2020, the COVID pandemic hit. My mother in Ohio got sick, cancer. She wanted to see me, see Lucas one last time. I need to go to Ohio, I told James. Not safe, he said firmly. Traveling with a young child during a pandemic? Absolutely not. But my mother is dying, and you want to risk Lucas's health? Expose him to the virus? You're a mother now. Your priority must be your child. He made it sound like I was being selfish, as if I would be a bad mother if I went, so I stayed. And my mother died in May 2020, alone, without saying goodbye. That's when I started to feel trapped, really trapped. I had no friends. James discouraged me from maintaining college friendships. They don't understand your life now. I had no family. I had no job, no income, no path to independence. I mentioned wanting To go back to school, finish my degree. Study for what? James asked. You have me. You have Lucas. Why do you need a piece of paper? For myself, I said. I want to finish what I started. Emily. James's voice turned cold. We've discussed this. The answer is no. Lucas needs a full-time mother. You can't be distracted by classes. I could study online. I said no. Definitive. No room for argument. That's when I realized this wasn't a relationship. This was ownership. But I couldn't leave. I had $200 in savings, no degree, no work experience, 5-year gap, no references, no family support. And worst, according to the contract I signed, if I left, James could contest custody based on financial stability. He had millions. I had nothing. Lucas was my everything. I couldn't risk losing him. So I stayed, year after year, watching Lucas grow, feeling myself shrink. Secretly, I enrolled in online courses at CUNY in 2022, a general studies program. I studied during Lucas's nap time, when James was at the office. Slow progress. 1 class per semester. But at least I was doing something for myself. James never noticed. Or if he did, he didn't care enough to comment. By 2024, Lucas was 5 years old, and I was 25. I had spent my entire adulthood in that penthouse, raising a child alone, invisible, until the gala party in October 2024, the night everything changed. For the first time in 6 years, James invited me to attend a company event. The annual gala at the Plaza Hotel, 200 guests, the most important clients, board members, investors. Want to come with me? He asked casually over breakfast. I was shocked. Really? Some clients want to meet my family. He shrugged. Good for image. Not romantic. Not because he wanted to spend time with me. Purely transactional. But I was desperate for any connection, so I said yes. James bought me a black cocktail dress. $800, price tag still on. That morning. Wear this, simple, elegant, not too flashy. At the gala, I felt out of place immediately. Other women wore designer evening gowns, dripping with jewelry. Conversations about yacht trips, private jets, resorts on the Côte d'Azur. James introduced me to exactly 2 people. An elderly board member and his wife. This is Emily, who helps me with my son, not partner, not Lucas's mother, the help. The elderly woman smiled politely, clearly uninterested, and turned back to the conversation about the charity auction. The rest of the evening, James ignored me. He networked, laughed with clients, charmed investors. I stood at the edge of the room, holding a glass of champagne I didn't drink, feeling invisible. Then I noticed her, Isabella Martinez. Early 20s, stunning in a red dress, standing next to a Japanese businessman. She laughed, lightly touched his arm, leaned in to whisper something. The businessman smiled, clearly captivated. James approached them, shook the businessman's hand. Mr. Tanaka, I see you've met Isabella, my assistant. She'll make sure you have a wonderful evening. There was something in James's tone, familiar, transactional, that made my skin crawl. I watched Isabella leave with Mr. Tanaka and suddenly noticed the other young women at the gala, all beautiful, in their 20s, all assistants at Whitmore Industries. And the way the clients looked at them, not the way you look at employees. Want to go home? James appeared beside me, voice cold. You're clearly not happy. I didn't know what to say. The driver will take you home. I need to stay. Close the deal with Mr. Tanaka. I went home in the Mercedes, watching the city lights fade through the window, and felt something fundamentally wrong. 2 days later, I found a business card in James's suit jacket pocket. Isabella, call me any time. On the back was a handwritten note. Last night was perfect. Thank you for everything. My hands trembled. I searched more, Found more cards. Sophie, Michelle, Rachel. I opened James's wallet. Hidden behind credit cards, a folded receipt from a hotel. 4 seasons, room service for 2. Date: Tuesday last week when James said he had a late client meeting. Suspicion sprouted into certainty. James was cheating. Multiple women. But a worse thought crept in. All these girls were his assistants. All young, beautiful, all seemed professional about this. I needed to know the truth. James's laptop sat on the desk in his office. He usually left it unlocked because he had let me use it before to order things for Lucas online. Technically implied consent. Hands trembling, I opened the laptop, went into the Documents folder, and found a folder labeled HR Contracts Confidential. Inside, 8 PDF files. Victoria Martinez 2012, 2014.pdf. Sarah Chen 2015, 2017.pdf. Jessica Lee 2009.pdf. Rachel Kim 2020 PDF. Michelle Lopez 2021.pdf. Sophie Anderson 2022 PDF. Anna Rodriguez 2023.pdf. Isabella Martinez 2024.pdf. And one more file. Emily Carter Family 2018 PDF. I opened Jessica Lee's file first, read through standard contract pages until page 3. Appendix A, Enhanced Service Agreement. Employee acknowledges that executive-client relations may include enhanced hospitality services. I stared at the screen, bitterness rising in my throat. I opened another contract. Same structure, opened another. Identical. All 8 contracts followed the exact same pattern. Legitimate job offer, 6 months of normal work. Then the enhanced appendix revealed, trapped by a $60,000 termination clause. Then I opened my file. Emily Carter, Family, Josu, 18.pdf. I read through the lines I had signed without understanding. Emily Carter agrees to exclusive family partnership relationship, absolute confidentiality, non-interference with Mr. Whitmore's professional relationships, and then the termination clause section. Upon termination by either party, Emily must vacate property within 30 days. Custody rights will be determined by court, financial capability heavily considered. James, having invested $518,000 in the child's welfare, has strong claims for primary custody, non-disclosure, $3,000 penalty for breach. I found a spreadsheet file labeled Revenue Tracking 2019-2024. Jessica earned $30,000. Additional in 2019 for client entertainment. I earned a total of $36,000 in 2019 for raising James's child. The other girls were paid to sleep with strangers. I was paid less to raise his child and keep his secrets. James kept me poor, deliberately, because a woman with $3,000 a month, no degree, no work experience, couldn't leave, couldn't fight, couldn't say no. I was the cheapest investment. Not because he loved me, because I cost the least and provided the most. Air, housekeeper, and silence. I photographed every file with my phone, every contract, every spreadsheet, every page. Then I closed the laptop, went to the bathroom, and vomited until there was nothing left. Lucas knocked on the door. "Mum, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied, wiping my mouth. "Just a little tired, but I wasn't fine, and I wouldn't be fine again until I stopped James Whitmore." The next day, while Lucas was at kindergarten and James at the office, I searched online. Free Legal Aid Manhattan Domestic Violence. The Legal Aid Society appeared first. I made an appointment. 2 days later, I met Marcus Reed in a small office in Queens. He was in his 50s, grey hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Ms. Carter," he said after I showed him the photos. "This isn't a simple affair case. This is sex trafficking." "But they were paid," I argued. "They signed contracts." "That's exactly the problem," Marcus explained. "Sex trafficking doesn't require kidnapping or physical force. It just requires coercion, and Mr. Whitmore used financial coercion. He recruited young women, often with student debt, visa issues, financial desperation. He offered legitimate jobs with high salaries and signing bonuses. They accepted, spent the bonus on debt. Then after 6 months, he revealed the real duties. By then they were trapped. They couldn't repay $60,000. If they quit, they faced bankruptcy, visa revocation, homelessness. So they complied. But consent obtained through financial threats isn't real consent. It's coercion, it's trafficking. "So, this is a federal crime?" Hope surged. "Absolutely. Wire fraud, money laundering, sex trafficking, tax evasion. The FBI would be very interested." But fear invaded me. "If I report, James will fight for custody. He has millions. I have nothing." Marcus nodded grimly. "That's the risk. But you also have evidence of his crimes, and federal agents can help protect you." "I need to think," I said. "Of course. But Miss Carter?" Marcus looked at me seriously. "Every day you wait, there's a chance Mr. Whitmore will trap a new victim. Isabella Martinez. She's in the system now. And there will be others after her." I thought about Lucas. About him growing up with James as a role model. About how one day he might treat women the way his father did. And I thought about the 8 girls in those files. Victoria, Sarah, Jessica, Rachel, Michelle, Sophie, Anna, Isabella. "I'll do it," I said. "But I need him to confess, on tape, so the FBI has undeniable evidence." Marcus smiled sadly. "New York is a one-party consent state. You can legally record conversations without him knowing. But you have to be careful. If he finds out." "I know." I thought about the termination clauses, about the custody threats. But I have no other choice. A week later, I wore the recording device Marcus provided. A small microphone attached inside my sweater. James came home at 9 p.m., loosened his tie, poured whiskey. "Do you have a minute?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "What?" He didn't look up. "I need to talk about Isabella and the other girls." James's hand froze, mid-pour. Slowly, he turned around. "What did you say?" I took a deep breath. "I know about the 8 contracts. I know about client entertainment services. I know what you're doing." Thick silence. Then James set down the glass, walked toward me, his expression cold as ice. "You went into my laptop. You left it unlocked. I needed to order things for Lucas." "Don't lie." His voice dangerous. "You read confidential business files. You know that's criminal." "Criminal?" I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. "You're talking about criminal? You're selling women." "Selling?" James's voice rose. "They were paid, Emily. Jessica Lee earned an extra $30,000 in 2019. Rachel Kim earned $38,000 in 2020. They chose that money." "They had no choice," I shot back. "If they refused, they had to repay $60,000. You trapped them." James stepped closer, looming. "That's contract law. Completely legal. They received signing bonuses. If they break the contract, they pay penalties. Standard practice in every industry." "Standard practice doesn't involve forcing women to sleep with strangers." "I didn't force anyone," James shouted. "I offered opportunities. Want to earn extra money? Here's how. If they accepted, that was their choice. If they didn't like it, they could quit and pay the penalty. Simple." "Simple," I repeated. incredulous. You think a $60,000 penalty is simple for a 23-year-old girl with student debt? James stopped, looking at me with a strange expression, half contempt, half pity. You know what your problem is, Emily? His voice suddenly quiet, almost philosophical. You think the world runs on love and morality, but it doesn't. It runs on transactions. Everyone sells something. This person sells time. That person sells brains. Those girls, they sell bodies. You sell the role of mother and silence. I'm just the only one honest about it. I call the transaction by its real name. But you pretend it's love, duty, noble sacrifice. But in the end, everyone has a price. I stared at him, chilled. I'm not merchandise. No, James laughed, a cruel sound. Then why are you still here? For love? You told me you wanted to leave 3 times in the past 2 years, but you stayed. Why? The question hung in the air. Because of Lucas, I whispered. Because of money, James corrected. Because you don't even have enough money to feed your own child for a week. Sign this contract, accept my philandering, keep your mouth shut, and you'll have enough money to raise the child. I was stunned. And from that moment, I knew I only had 2 choices: stay silent, live together, and hide the evil, or stand up and fight. I'm different from them, I said, voice trembling. I didn't sell my body. No, you sold something more expensive. James looked straight into my eyes. You sold your entire future, 6 years, your youth, your dreams. Those other girls, at least they left after 1-2 years. But you stayed, because you're scared, because you're weak, because you know that out there, without me, you're nothing. Every word like a knife stabbing. But I needed him to continue. The recording device was capturing everything. So I'm like those other girls? I asked softly. Worse, James said cruelly. At least they worked for the money. They entertained clients, built relationships, closed deals. But you just exist. You're the worst investment I ever made. Then why keep me? Tears flowed, but I didn't wipe them. Because of the kid. James pointed toward Lucas's room. Lucas is my son, my heir, and you're a necessary inconvenience. Cheaper to keep you here with a small allowance than to fight for custody. You never loved me. James was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, there was something different in his voice. Not regret, but weariness? Love? He repeated, looking at his whiskey glass. My father lost everything because of a woman. My mother reminded me of that every day. I said that men are only strong when they control others. I learned that lesson too early. So no, I don't love you. I don't love anyone. Because love makes you weak, makes you lose control. And I will never let that happen. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of something in James. Not humanity, but a crack. A dark void where love should have been. But then he turned back, eyes cold again. Now, what are you going to do with this information? I haven't decided, I lied. James stepped closer, breath smelling of whiskey. Here's some free advice, Emily. Do nothing, because you have too much to lose. And me, he smiled, no warmth. I have enough money to bury you in court until Lucas is 18. I'll win custody. I'll prove you're unstable, unable to provide, and you'll lose your son. So forget what you saw, forget what you think you know, and keep doing what you do best. Keep your mouth shut and stay put. I looked at him, the man I once thought I loved, and saw a stranger, a machine wearing human skin. I understand, I said softly. James nodded, satisfied, and turned back to his whiskey. I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and removed the recording device from inside my sweater. Every word, every confession, every threat, recorded. I had evidence, and now I had determination. James Whitmore just made his biggest mistake. Underestimating me. I spent that night at a 24-hour diner in Queens after James kicked me out. He discovered I had copied the files, called security, and forced me to leave the penthouse with only the clothes on my back. Lucas stayed behind, crying in James's arms. When the sun rose, I walked to the Legal Aid Society office, carrying the recording device and evidence on my phone. Marcus listened to the recording, eyes widening. Emily, this is gold. Confession about the system, humiliation of you, implicit threats. The FBI will love this. Within 2 weeks, everything happened quickly. 1. Emergency custody motion. The judge ruled, Mr. Whitmore cannot unilaterally keep the child, temporary custody to Ms. Carter. Lucas came back to me after 3 weeks, psychologically traumatized, clinging as if I might disappear again. 2. FBI opens investigation Special Agent Sarah Martinez, Sex Trafficking Division. Ms. Carter, what Mr. Whitmore operated is a textbook sex trafficking ring. 3. Contact with victims. 6 of the 8 women agreed to testify. Victoria Martinez, first victim, emerged from witness protection. Jessica Lee, Rachel Kim, Anna Rodriguez, Isabella Martinez, all ready to fight. In March 2025, a grand jury indicted James Whitmore on 31 federal charges. On the morning of March 15th, the FBI arrested James at his office. CEO arrested in sex trafficking ring, front page of every New York newspaper. James posted $5 million bail within 4 hours. But conditions, surrender passport, ankle monitor, no contact with victims. And the real legal battle began. March-December 2025, 9 months of hell. James's team, 8 lawyers, attacked from every angle. Media assassination, gold digger, fabricates trafficking charges, financial warfare. James froze every account I had access to. I literally had $0. Lucas and I lived in a shelter in the Bronx. Shared room, bunk beds, communal bathrooms. From an $8 million penthouse to a cot in a shelter. But I had Lucas, and that was all that mattered. First moral choice. Legal or ethical? Marcus suggested. Send the recording to the press to create public pressure. I refused. That's invasion of privacy. The way he used to treat me. Marcus. Sometimes to defeat a monster, you have to get in the mud. And if I go down, who will pull Lucas out? I held to my principles, even when backed into a corner. Second moral choice. Justice or child? James's lawyers offered a quiet settlement. If I withdrew my testimony, James would grant custody and put $5 million in a trust for Lucas. Marcus. If you sign, your child is safe, but he goes free. I looked at Lucas sleeping, thought about the 8 women, thought about future victims. If I stay silent, Lucas will learn that every crime has a price. I don't want him growing up believing that. I refused the deal. The trial began December 15th, 2025. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Victim testimony. Victoria Martinez. In 2012, I was 22, $150,000 in student debt. James offered $80,000 salary plus $30,000 bonus. After 6 months, he revealed the real job. When I refused, he showed me the contract. You owe $55,000 if you quit. I didn't have $55,000. Jessica Lee. Harvard MBA, $180,000 debt. James said, ready for senior client relations? When I refused, he threatened, then you owe $60,000 in 30 days, and I'll make sure every company in finance knows you broke your contract. You'll never work again. Rachel Kim, H-1B visa. James knew. Cooperate or lose your visa. That wasn't a choice. That was blackmail. Anna Rodriguez. Single mother. My daughter needed surgery. $40,000. James offered $35,000 signing bonus. I spent it immediately on surgery. Then he revealed the real job. He weaponized a mother's love. Isabella Martinez. Colombia. Graduated May 2024. 6 perfect months. Then October, James showed me Appendix A. I did 2 client meetings. Hated myself. Then Emily's case went public. FBI contacted me. Emily saved me. She saved all of us. Emily's testimony. Prosecutor Chen. Why did you report? Because when I saw Jessica's contract, 23 years old, Harvard, trapped, I saw myself at 19, and I thought, if I don't stop this, there will be another Jessica, another Rachel, another Anna. Brutal cross-examination. You received $500,000. Doesn't that make you complicit? I was 19 when I signed that contract. Pregnant, no family, no money. Mr. Whitmore's lawyer presented it as protection. I had no lawyer, didn't understand legal language. I trusted him. But the moment I discovered 8 other women, I had a choice. Stay silent and be complicit, or speak up and risk everything. I chose to speak up, even if it meant losing my home, losing stability, risking Lucas. So, no, I'm not complicit. I was trapped, and then I fought back. James testifies. Fatal mistake. Against his lawyer's advice, James insisted on testifying, initially confident, justifying standard business practices. But cross-examination destroyed him. Prosecutor Chen. Mr. Whitmore, 6 women testified you coerced them. They describe identical patterns. You expect the jury to believe all 6 are lying and you're telling the truth? Silence. Chen produced the recording. And here's your voice. I'll win custody. I'll prove you're unstable. And you'll lose your son. Sounds like you threatened a victim to keep her silent. James's face went pale. Chen continued. You also said, love makes you weak, makes you lose control, and I will never let that happen. You built this entire system because you fear love, fear losing control, so you controlled others with money. James silent, unable to deny. No further questions. The jury deliberated for 3 days. February 20th, 2026. Verdict. On count 1, sex trafficking of Victoria Martinez, how does the jury find the defendant? Guilty, 1 by 1. 31 counts. 31 times were guilty. The courtroom erupted. Victims cried, embraced each other. I sat, paralyzed. After 16 months of fighting, finally, justice. Sentencing, Judge Richardson. Mr. Whitmore, for 12 years you systematically exploited 8 women. Considering the scale of harm and complete lack of remorse, the court sentences you to 28 years in federal prison. James stood, face expressionless. But his hands, clenched at his sides, trembled slightly. Police led him away in handcuffs. Walking past the defense table, James stopped for a second, looked down at a photo of Lucas on the file. The photo the judge had displayed as evidence of damage to family. James's finger lightly touched the edge of the photo. 1 second. Then he pulled back, face blank again. Reaching the courtroom door, he muttered, looking at no one. No one left to control. That was the real collapse. Not losing in court, but losing the tool to exist. Aftermath and reconstruction. Whitmore Industries. The penthouse. Investments. All liquidated by court order. After taxes and legal fees, the compensation fund held over $12 million. Divided among 9 victims. Me and 8 other women. each receiving over $130,000, paid over 3 years. Not life-changing money, but a start. Rebuilding step by step. The first payment arrived like a gift from the future. $45,000, more than I'd ever had in my account. I sat staring at the number on my phone screen for a long time, trembling, unable to believe it. Then I planned every dollar. A small apartment in Queens, 2 bedrooms, enough for me and Lucas. Deposit and first 3 months. An emergency fund for hard days. Childcare costs so I could go to school. Tuition for the social work program at CUNY. The dream I'd abandoned. And money for therapy sessions, because I knew healing took time. For the first time in 6 years, I had a choice. Didn't need permission. Didn't need to explain. Just choose. Back to school. First day at CUNY, I sat in class with an old backpack, blank notebook, and felt like being born a second time. The professor asked, "Why did you choose social work?" I didn't raise my hand, but inside I knew the answer, because I understand what it feels like to be trapped, and I want to help others find a way out. Marcus, who guided me through the trial, invited me to work part-time at Legal Aid. $15 an hour, 20 hours per week, victim advocacy assistant. The first time I received a paycheck, bearing my name from my work, I cried. Lucas asked why Mum was crying, and I could only hug him tight, saying, "Mum is happy, sweetheart. Mum is so happy." Third moral choice, protect others or protect yourself. One day, Agent Martinez called. "Emily, we want to invite you to join a public campaign. Appear on television, share your story. If you speak up, other victims, those still silent, will have courage." I looked out the window. Lucas was playing in the park below, laughing loudly with a group of new friends. "And Lucas will be called what?" I asked softly. "The contract girl's son? The victim's child? For life?" Silence on the other end. "I understand," Agent Martinez said. "I can't force you." "I'll do it," I said after thinking. "But not now. Only when my child is strong enough not to be hurt by it. When he's old enough to understand." I declined the spotlight. Instead, I chose to work quietly, supporting others through nonprofits, writing guides for lawyers, answering emails from desperate women who didn't know where to turn. That was also a way to fight. Just not loud. Graduation day. The CUNY graduation ceremony took place on a sunny spring morning. I wore the graduation gown, square cap, lined up with other students. When my name was called, Emily Carter, Bachelor of Arts in Social Work, with honours, applause rang out. But the loudest sound came from Lucas. He shouted, "That's my mom!" I looked down at the seats, saw him jumping, waving frantically. Beside him were Marcus, Dr. Kim, a few shelter staff, those who supported me through the darkest days. I held the diploma, white paper, gold letters, my name, and felt like I'd climbed a mountain, first in my family to have a college degree. My mother, though no longer here, would surely be proud. With the final payment from the compensation fund, plus what I'd saved, I had $80,000. I could keep it, invest, live comfortably. But I thought about Maria, about Jessica, about the 8 women, about all those still trapped out there, not knowing anyone could help. And I decided, Safe Harbor Consulting, small nonprofit, shared office with other groups, 2 part-time staff. We provided free legal advocacy, connected with lawyers, provided therapy support for victims of workplace coercion. First month, 3 clients. 6th month, 15. End of first year, over 40 women helped escape exploitative situations. Every story was the same, only different names, different faces, but the same fear, the same trap. And each time a woman walked out of the office with straighter shoulders, I knew I was doing right. At a conference on combating sexual exploitation, I met Dr. David Park, psychologist specializing in trauma. He spoke about supporting victim recovery, and I sat taking notes on every sentence. After his talk, I approached with questions about my clients. David answered thoughtfully, then invited me for coffee to discuss further. Coffee led to dinner. Dinner led to walks in the park, slowly, very slowly. David knew my story. He'd read about the case, but he didn't ask, didn't push, just simply there. The first date was a disaster. The waiter, a tall man in a vest, approached the table suddenly to pour water. I flinched, nearly knocked over my glass. Panic hit like a tsunami, heart racing, hands trembling. Couldn't breathe. "Emily," David said gently, not touching me. "Look at me. Breathe in through your nose. Count to 4. Hold. Breathe out through your mouth. Count to 4. I followed. Once, twice, 3 times. Gradually, the panic subsided. "I'm sorry," I whispered, face burning. "I'm a mess." "You're a survivor," David corrected, eyes kind. "And survivors have trigger points. That's completely normal. We can leave if you need." "No," I said, determined. "I want to stay." That was the moment I knew he was different. No judgment, no disappointment, just patience. The relationship developed at its own pace. 3 months before the first kiss, 6 months before meeting Lucas, a year before I let him stay overnight. And not once did David complain. Now, 3 years after the case, we're still together. Not engaged, not married. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, but we're committed. We're happy. And that's enough. Fourth moral choice: forgive or close. One afternoon, the mailman brought a thick envelope. Stamp from New York prison. I recognized the handwriting on the envelope. James. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a short letter. "I'm not apologizing. I can't change the past. But I want to know if Lucas is happy." I sat by the window, holding the letter, looking outside for a long time. Thought about James, about the child who learned that love is weakness, about the man who built an empire on control because he feared losing control. Thought about the 8 women, about Lucas, about myself. I didn't answer the letter. Instead, I put it in a new envelope, wrote on it, "For Lucas, when he's old enough to understand." Not forgiveness, because some things can't be forgiven, but also not holding grudges, because hatred only imprisons me in the past. I chose closure, chose to move forward, chose to live. That night, Lucas asked, "Mum, when will you tell me about Dad?" I looked at him, 9 years old, clear eyes, still innocent about the world's shadows. "Someday, sweetheart," I said gently, "when you're old enough to understand. But now you just need to know Mum loves you more than anything, and Mum will always protect you." Lucas nodded, satisfied, and went back to reading. I looked at him and knew. This is why I fought. This is why I survived. Not for justice, not for fame, but for my son, so he could grow up in a slightly better world, where people like James couldn't continue to harm, and that in the end was worth everything. Maria listened to the entire story, eyes red. "So, you lost 6 years," Maria said slowly. 2 years fighting in court, 3 years rebuilding, and you're still in therapy? "Monthly sessions," I confirmed. "PTSD doesn't disappear with a verdict. Healing is an ongoing process." "But you won." "I survived," I corrected. Winning and surviving are 2 different things. I survived. 8 women survived. James is in prison. That's justice. But winning? I gestured around the small office. Winning is this. Helping you. Helping women like you recognize the trap before getting caught. Winning is Lucas growing up knowing I fought for him. Fought for others. Winning is waking up every morning and choosing my life. Maria was silent. Then, my boss. He said if I refuse the promotion, I'll stagnate. No advancement. Might even get fired. Classic coercion, I said. Making you feel like you have to choose between career and dignity. So what should I leaned forward. Run. Right now. Because that's exactly how it started with 8 other women. Just dinner. Then just hotel meetings. Then trapped. You have an advantage they didn't. You see the trap before stepping in. Victoria, Jessica, Rachel, they didn't know until too late. You know now. But I need this job. No job is worth your safety, I said firmly. No salary is worth your body. No promotion is worth your dignity. Safe Harbor will help you. We'll review your contract. Connect you with employment lawyers. Help you find safe work. But the decision is yours. That's the lesson I took 6 years to learn. You always have a choice. You always have the power to say no. I thought I needed James to survive. Turns out I survived, thrived, without him. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. Maria took a trembling breath. Okay, I'll quit. Today. I smiled, the first real smile of the conversation. You're brave, and you're making the right choice. Here, I handed her a business card. The lawyer we work with, call him. Tell him Emily Carter referred you. Thank you, Maria whispered. You saved me. No, I said gently. You saved yourself. You walked through that door. You asked for help. You listened. You decided. I just showed you there are choices. The power was yours from the beginning. Maria left, clutching the card, shoulders straighter than when she entered. I sat back down, looked at the calendar. 15 appointments this week. Each one a woman like Maria. The phone rang. Safe Harbor Consulting, Emily Carter speaking. Ms. Carter, my name is Jennifer. I saw the article about you, and I think I need help. Tell me what's happening, I said, taking out my notebook. Another story, another trap, another chance to help someone escape. That evening, after Lucas went to sleep, I stood by the window of the small apartment, looking at the Queen's lights. Not Central Park, not a penthouse, but mine. People ask me, was it worth it? Fighting James, losing 6 years? The truth? I wish I'd never met him. Wish I'd never signed that contract. Wish I'd never wasted 6 years. But I don't wish I'd stayed silent. Because staying silent would mean 8 women continued to be trapped. Would mean Lucas growing up thinking men control women with money. Would mean I never discovered the strength I had. 7 years ago, I thought freedom meant penthouse, luxury, not worrying about bills. Now I know. Freedom is waking up and choosing your day. Freedom is saying no without fear. Freedom is knowing, truly knowing, that your worth isn't tied to a bank account, relationship status, or job title. You have value simply because you exist, because you are human, and no one, not a boss, not a partner, not a contract, can take that away. Unless you let them. I let James take 6 years, but he will never take another day. Because now, I belong to myself, and that's the kind of freedom money can't buy. I turned back to my desk, opened my laptop, started writing an email to Jennifer, the latest victim. Lucas appeared at the door, rubbing his eyes. Mom, you're still working? Just 1 minute, sweetheart. I opened my arms wide. Lucas ran in, hugged tight. Mom's a superhero. I laughed, kissed the top of his head. Not a superhero, honey. Just a mum doing the right thing. That's still a superhero. Lucas looked up, eyes serious. Uncle David says Mom saves lots of people, like in movies. Not like movies, honey. In real life, heroes don't have capes. They just have the courage to stand up when they're scared. Is Mom scared? Mom is scared every day, I said honestly. But Mom still does it. Because some things are more important than fear. Like me, like you, and like all the women Mum helps. They're also someone's child, someone's mother, someone's sister. Lucas nodded, understanding in the way only children can understand simple truths. Now go to sleep, I said, leading him to his room. When Lucas fell asleep, I returned to the window one more time. Looked at the city, not from a high penthouse, but from the 5th floor of an old building. But this view was more beautiful, because it was mine. I am Emily Carter, survivor, mother, advocate, warrior. And for the first time in my adult life, I am free. Your worth is not determined by circumstances. You always have a choice. You always have the power to say no, and you are never alone in the fight.